Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. I'm about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that, you know me, Renny's no fan, okay? Renny's not pulling one way or another for a logo, you know. But he is pulling for good hockey, and because of that, Renny was like borderline pulling for a Jets victory on this night because we finally see it. We finally see it. What did we see? Well, why don't you hop into my Toyota Yaris, 2007 sweetheart of a Toyota Yaris, and let's go on the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive, and we'll talk all about it. Why the Yaris? Because you got to see the fun I'm having out there in these streets, slippery streets. That little Yaris, I'm all over the place in that thing. That thing is, it's like driving a dinky car through all this kind of stuff. It's the best. Anyway, we finally see it. We finally see the Winnipeg Jets finding this idea of, hey, let's go out and get some shots and get some offense and press on these guys and, you know, create something. Hey, let's give our audience something to get excited about, something to cheer for. It finally happens, and it was interesting because there was clearly some shots missed or something like that. But the Jets get scored on in the first period, and there's about, I think there's 4:45 left on the clock. And the shot clock goes from 4 shots to 12 by the end of the period. I was talking with Jamie Thomas. I think there was 8 shots calculated by the Jets in the last 3 minutes of that game. And what did that accumulate in? It accumulated in a tying goal at the end of the first period as the Winnipeg Jets got pushing. Now, I do contend that before that, shot volume, event level was extremely low. It was back to what we're used to seeing from the Winnipeg Jets. But because they didn't get scored on first, they were forced to open up. It wasn't, okay, we scored. Now let's go kind of sit back in our end, put up a wall, do all of the things I've been talking about over the last little while, paint dry hockey, I've called it in the past. This is the exact opposite of this. The Winnipeg Jets need to open up. They need to get going. And that's why they get the result that they get. But it also results in one of what I thought their biggest offensive explosions. Now, not necessarily puck in the back of the net, but the Winnipeg Jets put up shot after shot, opportunity after opportunity. They forced the Nashville Predators goaltender to steal the points that he steals for his team in this game. But this is domination by the Winnipeg Jets. It's coming off 2 games in which the Winnipeg Jets were dominated and found a way to win. It's kind of funny that the Winnipeg Jets dominate in the last 2 games where the Jets were dominated and yet found a way to win. In this game here tonight, they dominated. There is no question that the Winnipeg Jets were the better of the 2 teams, were the busier of the 2 teams, created the better opportunities of the 2 teams. It seemed like the Nashville Predators put every good chance they had into the back of the net against the Winnipeg Jets. So what I do hope, and I don't think that this is going to be the case because asking Scott Arniel about it afterwards, that's the offense he felt his team had been chasing for quite some time. If the Winnipeg Jets can add that and maintain what I thought was a pretty good defensive effort overall, not the let's sit at home base and guard the base and not move anywhere kind of defense, but I didn't think it was that far off from being impenetrable in that manner. Just a couple plays. One is like, I mean, give credit where it's due. Phil Forsberg's shot and that goal from the angle that he gets it at. Sometimes teams are going to make a play. That's what happens there. And then a little bit of a contested puck for the third goal that gets past Josh Morrissey. Jets get caught with, not enough guys back down the ice in that situation. But I didn't think there was much in the way of mistakes by the Winnipeg Jets. I thought for the most part, this was an easy game for Connor Hellebuyck. The shots were coming way from the outside. He could see them. There wasn't a lot of traffic in front outside of the first goal on the power play. He didn't have to fight through to see the puck. This was an overall game that if the Winnipeg Jets, I talk about this all the time. And do I think that their previous 2 games against St. Louis and Colorado are blueprint games that you can trot out again and again and again and expect them to come away with the 2 points like they did in those games? No, I don't. But this is a game where 9.5 times out of 10, the Winnipeg Jets are going to come away with 2 points. And they almost do in this game. They don't get it done in a shootout. They don't get it done in overtime. But I think the Winnipeg Jets are better served playing that kind of hockey. The schedule, it's been a beneficial schedule for the Winnipeg Jets since they've come out of the Olympic break. It's going to get tougher going down the stretch here. So these games where they've sat on leads and, pulled off rope-a-dope after rope-a-dope, they're not going to get away with it down the stretch. This, though, tells me that they reached a new evolution in their style of game. Maybe not style, but they've added an element to their game that I think, A, is far more entertaining for their fans, but B, is far more likely to result in the kind of points they're going to need to get over the playoff line. It sounds ironic for me to be saying it after they won 2 games in a row and now they lose this one. But to me, this is the way for the Winnipeg Jets. Offense, defense, you got it all on this night. Everything except for 2 points. You come away with only 1. That's my take on the whole thing in the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive, ladies and gentlemen. And this March, find your next Toyota, Jim Pattison Toyota on Region. Strong, capable, powerful. The 2026 Tundra is the perfect blend of rugged and sophisticated, ready to take you on any adventure. I might add beautiful to that because I love that truck. Absolutely. This month, finance it. The 2026 Tundra from 4.79% plus eligible loyalty customers receive a 1% rate reduction. But hurry, the offer ends March 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. And I'll say this one last thing. I don't know how many people kind of geek out on the battery technology that I do, but there's a recent article, you could check it out, in the last 3 months came out about plans by Toyota. They've built a factory overseas. They're trying to produce these solid state batteries. I've talked about it on the show before, have the capability of a 1,200 kilometer range and about a 12 to 13 minute charge. I'm telling you right now, if they get I already know what my next vehicle is. It's 2027 Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid electric vehicle with an 80 kilometer range. That's what Renny and Mrs. Renny are waiting for when the 2027s come out. But we'll need another vehicle after that. And I'm telling you right now, if Toyota is able to produce that solid state battery with a 1,200 kilometer range, my next vehicle, mark it down, will be a tricked out, fully loaded 2000 whatever Toyota Tundra. If I can get an electric vehicle, I'm all over that. Anyways, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business as I totally went off in a different direction. Let's get it back on track here, ladies and gentlemen, and bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Ken. Ken, you know as well as anyone that flattery gets people anywhere they want with Renny. And the infamous Russell Peters says, Sean has great hair today. You know what my theory on this is? It's the suit looks so good that it makes the hair pop, right? It's almost like a halo around the head. This suit, of course, you and I got together with Frankie to go have a lunch the other day before you headed out of town. And I was telling him about this suit that I've had since like 2016, 2017 that I can't go out without someone complimenting on it. This is the one. I wanted to trot it out. And his response to that wasn't like, oh, wow, that's good. He's like, what do you think I do? This is what I do. You want to look good? You're going to look good, and you're going to look good for a long time. So you folks, if you want to look good and you want to look good for a long time, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they'll put the kind of suit on you that will last for years upon years upon years, but more importantly, will make you look so good that people will compliment your hair no matter what it looks like. This hair is all over the place, but the suit holds it all together, folks. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi. You'll get those kind of spin-off benefits as well. Ken, you're clearly back down in front of the, what do we call it? Sea mist, sea foam
Monterey
colored,
Mist, Monterey Mist, Thunderbird.
Monterey Mist. There we go. So you're looking good regardless. Look like a guy who spent some time golfing out there. I hope you took enough time away to go watch the game. And if you did, people want to know what you thought.
Certainly did. Yes. Where's your green? Oh, yeah, you got green going. Good job. Happy St. Patrick's Day to the folks who celebrate. Nicely done here. Very good. Interesting game again. Always a different perspective, on the old tube rather than being in the building. Always prefer to be in the building when we can. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting, right? It started very low event, as you mentioned, but definitely the Jets found some offense. I think, and Sean, I think you'd agree. It was during that power play. They finally got a couple of looks on the power play in the first period, and then sort of got themselves going. And pretty impressive to see. I mean, I'm not going to say surprising, but Sean, it had been so long since they generated that level of offensive attack that
totally.
I do think it was I think we have to use the word surprising. Not that we hadn't seen it before, but we hadn't seen it in so long that you kind of, like you said, it kind of looked like they were going to try to win every game down the stretch 1-0 or 2-1. So yeah, I mean, I think that, anyone who watches this team, the entertainment value, was in the, ready to be, amplified, I guess, if you will. And I think it was interesting, Gabe Vilardi with another classic Gabe Vilardi post-game address. I'm going to defer to you on that one when I step back from the buffet. But yeah, I mean, I thought the Gabe Vilardi, I was probably the best player on the ice for the Jets today. Goal and an assist, and drew 2 penalties. He's up to 28 on the season, which is incredibly impressive number. I mean, he's among the league leaders, I believe, in that category. This is a guy who, when you're able to draw minor penalties, it's impressive because A, it means the puck is on your stick, and B, it means you're doing something with the puck because, Gabe isn't Gabe's got a lot of great qualities. Gabe's not pulling away from players with his blazing speed to force people to drag him down. So he's doing it by winning battles and putting himself in position, using his body position and also all of those things. So pretty impressive to see that kind of a game. I'm going to just insert myself quickly before I step over and defer to you for being in the conversation. But, I liked Gabe. I wouldn't say Gabe got his back up, but I love the way that he said, I can produce at 5-on-5 no matter who I'm with. And that's what I plan on doing. So again, I liked seeing that from Gabe, and I'd be curious for your thoughts on the rest of the answer before I tackle anything else here.
Well, to me, I've figured it out, Ken. The Winnipeg Jets, they're all Winnipeg Jets out there. They're all versions of planes that fly in the sky. Gabe Vilardi is one of those guys that you have to step out of the cockpit of the plane and you need to spin the propeller multiple times to get him going. Because what I have noticed is by the end of a scrum with Gabe Vilardi, unless you give up really early, he ends up giving fairly long, thoughtful answers, right? And today was another case of that. By the time he got to the 4th or the 5th or the 6th answer in there, he was giving long, thoughtful, almost drawn-out answers that were really great stuff. And when you do get him talking, he gives really great answers. His start, though, is always like almost near painful at times. And it's interesting because a lot of times what we do for the sake of radio, you'll notice a lot of times CJOB will go and they will start the questioning. And the reason they do that is it allows them to be able to say, we're going to throw it down to our guy down there in the post-game show. And it sounds as though they're throwing from the show right down to the reporter in the scrum. And it feels like the scrum has been waiting for the show to get to it, right? It's actually a really great way to do radio. So in the first interview, the CJOB reporter had started asking the questions, but there was no one who was going to start that one. Everyone was waiting, and they were waiting for me to do it. So I jumped in, started asking those questions. I've been through these rodeos before. I know how to ask an open-ended question. I know how to ask questions that are hard for the player to not say very much. He tried his darndest. And it's funny, I could see him struggling to try and say as little as possible. But the way that I had asked the question, I'd asked why. And in that manner, it's hard to, you can't say yes or no to why. You have to give somewhat of a drawn out answer. He did his best to keep it as short as possible, but it got him going a little bit. Then I came back with another one. Then I came back with another one. He finally did get going. I mean, I think there's a little bit of playfulness to what he does.
Agreed.
Because his whole thing is that he's going to stonewall you until you kind of earn it. I think we've seen that in the past. But that said, when he does get going, he's thoughtful, he's drawn out, he's got a lot to say. He's clearly a thinker, right? A lot of guys who don't say much in interviews aren't thinkers. And so that they don't have a lot to say. He's actually got a lot to say. He's just not so sure if he wants to say it to you. So you got to coax him out. You got to spin the propeller 3 or 4 times before it finally starts moving. But when it moves, it moves. One of my favorite responses that he had, Ken, was when I asked him about the perspective of, from this team's perspective, was that a point earned or a point lost, right? Like they're down in that. How do you look at this? You dominated. Feels like you should have won that game. And yet you were down with a minute left on the clock and you had to score just to come away and get that point. Is it a point earned? Is it a point lost? I thought, a lot of times players will duck out on questions like that. He didn't shy away from it at all. He thought that was a point lost for that team. And it just, to me, gives, when you ask questions like that, it's almost more of a philosophy. Glass half full, glass half empty. His answer to me, it says to these guys that they understand just how valuable each and every single point is for them to try and earn down the stretch here, and that they don't have a lot of points to give away. By my count now, they have 3.5 games. 7 points that they can give away, and then the playoff line is going to get too far ahead of them. So I like that, the response to that question, because it showed to me a player who's very aware, who's not taking any moral victories, a guy who's like, look, it was there for us tonight. We wanted to, maybe we needed to. They're not letting themselves off the hook, which shows to me a team that's going to be right on the ball when it comes down to the rest of the race here.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, like, we lost. That was the exclamation point on the answer to Gabe Vilardi. And it's interesting, right? I mean, I agree. And I'm going to tell you, when I'm sitting on the couch on watching the post games and I see Gabe come in with the scowl and I know that you're going to have to warm him up, I'm like, okay, well, this is going to go one of 2 ways. And, kudos and stick taps to you for getting the ball rolling. And again, I think he's great at getting to the kind of root of the issue once he's ready to get warmed up here. So yeah, I mean, it is a point gained in a lot of ways, but Sean, it's a point gained that they needed during the 11-game losing streak, right? Like that's part of I think that's part of the frustration that you hear from all players. I mean, Jonathan Toews, again, was having none of it, right? I mean, yes, they were happy to get one, and they should be happy, because anytime you tie a game with the goalie out in favor of an extra attacker, it's a bonus point, no doubt. But for a team that needs to play 700 hockey, Sean, I mean, this was a chance to go 6-2. And when a team goes 6-2, it's a lot easier to play 700 hockey in your 10-game block than it is if you go 5-2-1, even though you do get that bonus point, right? So it's super interesting. I mean, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we said on the show, the last 2 games is not the template, but that non-template games got 4 points and the template game got them 1. So the problem there for the Jets is that you can't cheat and say, hey, well, we look at all these other great things we did. It didn't help out in the end. But if the Jets are somehow going to, rally here in the last 15, and, it's been pointed out in the chat, and I think we've got the scores up here. Seattle down 4-2. So the Jets lose ground to the Nashville Predators, 1 point of ground, but they may make up a point on the Seattle Kraken in the
and the San Jose Sharks.
Right, Sharks lost too. Sharks were up early.
Darn good night. If you're gonna lose a game to the Nashville Predators, you only lost 1 point back of them, right? Because of how things turned. So anyways, go on.
So anyways, 10 minutes left in the third period, 4-2 Lightning So yeah, I mean, so it's interesting, right? And it's natural for the Jets to think it's a missed opportunity because the missed opportunity is the opportunity to leapfrog the Nashville Predators in the race, right? They were within one. Yes, they get 1 point, but Nashville gets two. So, they continue now. They have a 2 point deficit to Nashville. But again, that doesn't matter. If you're trying to get to eighth, you get to eighth, however means necessary or possible. So, anyways, this is the game that Scott O'Neill wants to hold up, right? I mean, and he answered your question perfectly, Sean. Yes, offensively, that is what the Jets want to look like a little bit more often. So to me, that was encouraging because, as you've mentioned, I mean, lately it'd been looking like they wanted to stay close to home base and just play low event hockey, which is not a whole lot of fun for anyone. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of style of play that might allow the Jets to do, something wild in the last 15. Now, having said that, now they go out on an Eastern Conference swing here. They got to play a Boston Bruins team, which is right in the middle of it, Sean, as you and I were talking about during the game.
Yeah.
Especially with the Columbus Blue Jackets winning tonight, they're within a point now of the Boston Bruins in that chase for eighth in the East. So, and then they got
the Detroit Red Wings.
Right. Sorry, and then the Red Wings look, we've talked about
those teams. So it's interesting. If you take a look at what's happening in the East, that's a true playoff race over there. Like right now, the Boston Bruins are not faltering. They just keep, soldiering on, right? They've got, whereas the Detroit Red Wings, even with the injuries that they have, they're 4-4-2 in their last 10 games. That's not terrible. You've got the Blue Jackets who are 6-0-4. You've got the Ottawa Senators outside there who are 7-1-2. So they've got points in 9 of their last 10 and 16 of a possible 20 points in the last. Like this is the Islanders won here tonight. Pittsburgh has been holding up their end of the deal. Montreal, who's actually only 2 points out of 8th place, wins on this night. Like that is an absolute slog for who's going to go in first, whereas the Jets are benefiting from the idea that for that 8th spot, it's kind of one of those no, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it kind of scenarios. If we take a look at this quickly, Seattle 4-6 in their last 10. Los Angeles Kings just over 500 at 5-4-1. San Jose just over 500 at 5-3-2. Nashville Predators at 500 4-4-2. Right, so the teams above the Jets are doing their best to give the Winnipeg Jets a chance. I was going to say this, Ken. What would be absolute bizarro world for me is if in all this and all the things we're expecting, the San Jose Sharks at times look like a really great team. LA looks like one of those teams that maybe they can get centered and kind of find a little bit of what they were last year. The Seattle Kraken, are they finally going to turn? All these different things. Could you imagine a scenario by which when the dust settles, the Nashville Predators find themselves in 8th place? Like that would be unthinkable to me. Like of all the teams, and I'm including the St. Louis Blues in this, who are 3 points behind the Winnipeg Jets now. Of all the teams I would not have expected to get there, it's the Nashville Predators. And all of a sudden the Nashville Predators find themselves just 2 points out of 8th place it's a fascinating race going down to the wire here, regardless. I did want to talk.
Let's on that theme here. Let's go Flame and Comfort right here from O. Cranley.
Yes.
2 teams with older rosters, good goaltending, both going through rough seasons. Insert Spider-Man pointing meme here. I mean,
there you go.
I think O. Cranley nails it here.
No, absolutely nails it. And that is why he is walking away with the Flame and Comfort hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. And when you get down there, you're going to find it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of it for you. Okay, Ken, I was talking for a little bit there. I want you to, we've been doing this just kind of like giving an open page for the top line. I've got something to say on the top line tonight, but first I want you to just like kind of put into perspective what you've been seeing from that team as of late.
Yeah, I mean, it's been impressive. I mean, one thing that caught my attention, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that you agree, we've talked about this topic a lot. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly had another, I felt, exceptional game against the Jets. I mean,
he did.
Mark Scheifele does set up Jonathan Toews beautifully for the 6-on-5 goal. But this was another time where Ryan O'Reilly had, raised his level going up against one of the hottest centermen in the National Hockey League. Now, yes, Kyle Connor, I know, very impactful game, but I think he had 2 assists, or did he have? I think he had 2 assists in the game. But anyways, regardless, I thought O'Reilly was really good in the game. But overall, Jets top line able to deliver again. This wasn't one of those games where they were getting hemmed in and all kinds of shots against. This was a game where they dictated the pace, Sean. They spent a ton of time in the offensive zone, and they were very dangerous. And they nearly ended it in 3-on-3 on 2 or 3 different occasions. So I love what I'm seeing from Kyle Connor. We talked about Mark Scheifele a ton. I mean, he's getting closer to that 87-point mark. That it was a career high that he set last year. To me, the tenacity that Kyle Connor is playing with, I mean, there was tons of great examples of strong defensive play. And yes, those guys have been taken to the carpet for their defensive play at times, and often, justifiably so at various points of their careers. But there was a lot of back pressure, a lot of defending, a lot of being on the right. There was no cheating that I saw today in the game, Sean, where it would have been easy to start to cheat for offense. They were getting their offense the hard way. They were doing a great job, dog it on the puck when Alex Iafallo was out there with them before the changes were made in the third period. But overall, I think, Scheifele and Connor are, they're needing to be at their best down the stretch, and they have been at their best. I mean, I don't know there's any other way for me to put it.
Well, all I can say is this. I'm trying to think about lines and their importance to their team. Touched on it the last show where I said, like, if they'd been getting any kind of support for that top line, where would the Winnipeg Jets be? But I'm starting to think, like, Nathan McKinnon, clearly his line with Martin Necas, like, that is an extremely valuable line to that team. But where would that team be without that line? Like, if you took away that line, where would that team be? Would they be battling? Would they be an 8th place team, 7th place? Would they be a playoff team? All this kind of, these kind of questions. And I take a look, clearly, we're going to find out what the Edmonton Oilers look like without Leon Draisaitl to the end of the season. What's their first response? Well, they take on a desperate San Jose Sharks team and beat them 5-3. I think, Ken, it's remarkable. Like, at this stage, with the Winnipeg Jets coming out, making the push that they're making, it's remarkable that night after night, this top line just keeps coming out and putting their stamp on the game over and over and over again. And it's interesting because I had someone in my not my DMs, that sounds like someone's trying to pick me up, but someone chatting with me, about hockey, and they made the comment that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are among the top duos in NHL history. And I'd said, okay, stop insulting the game. Okay. Like that's ridiculous. Cool your Jets, like Gretzky and Curry, Hall and Oates. Like, you can go on and on through the history of the game and find these, like, all-time players who, who played together. Like, you're talking about 2 players who never would have reached the heights of Lemieux and Kevin Stevens, right? Who were absolutely outlandish in their time. And anyways, but so I kind of said to that person, all right, let's stop being ridiculous here. Like, take the aviator shades off. It's ridiculous to suggest that Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are a top duo of all time. The suggestion, I think, had been top 5 or something like that. That's ridiculous. But I want to make sure I'm giving them the credit that's due. And the credit I will say to them right now is, can you tell me a team out there that has a more important top line than the Winnipeg Jets do? Like, where would this team be without that line this year, Ken? They would be they were last in the league for a while. They would be last in the league, and they would be getting lapped. Like, based on what the amount of points that they've been able to generate in the standings just by that line going off. If you took away Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, and let's throw Gabe Vilardi in there and take them out of the lineup, the Winnipeg Jets are in contention with the Colorado Avalanche of 2015 or 16 or whatever it was for the worst season in NHL history, because they are literally like doing 80 to 85% of what the Winnipeg Jets offense is doing out there. I know the numbers aren't going to kind of go to that, but honestly, go back and see the games where the Winnipeg Jets win games and see who's putting their mark on the game. It is almost never done if that line is not doing it. I just thought tonight is just another example of night after night after night, the consistency that you've got from that team throughout the entirety of the year. But even the push that's happening right now, what would this push look like if it wasn't Mark Scheifele going off and Kyle Connor going off? What would it be a push?
There's no push. No,
there's no push. This line is the and this is going to sound hyperbolic. Hyperbolic.
Sure, close enough.
Yeah. But I wanted, that's why I told the story out of the gate. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, it's the Jets. They're the most important duo in the history of the NHL, these two, right? Like, that's ridiculous to suggest that. It's ridiculous probably to put them in the top 10, maybe even the top 20 duos. Probably, you're talking about if you put them in the top 40, that would be complimentary. But there's no doubt about it right now. The Winnipeg Jets do not have a competitive team in any way, shape, or form. I don't care if you've got a Hart Trophy goaltender. I don't care if you've got one of the top 3 or 5 defensemen in the game in Josh Morrissey. You remove those 2 players from the lineup, and this team is not competitive. Period. They are looking at relegation. If relegation was a thing, they are making the Vancouver Canucks look like an outstanding hockey team in comparison to them right now. The Winnipeg Jets are Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, and I get that you're going to come at me with the argument, and you should come at me with the argument that then split them up and do this and do that or whatever. But the Winnipeg Jets have a chance, period, because those 2 players have taken it on their backs, and they have not faltered for the entirety of the year.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to shortchange Kyle Connor. Assisted on all 3 goals for the Jets. He had 7 shots on goal and 13 shot attempts, Sean. So, I mean, again, those 2 together have been excellent for most of the nights. Yes, they have been chances they've been scored against, but they've been scored against because they haven't had a lot of help on the complementary offense side of things. And again, I think that there are players that are feeling the weight and the burden of that, Sean. And I think Jonathan Toews is a great example. He kind of brought it up unprovoked today about how
well, he needs to.
He basically said, those guys have been carrying us. We need to do more. So, and he knows that he's a big part of that, right? I mean, that's 20 games without a goal for Toews, but he found a way to make an impact. He wins the draw back cleanly. He finds the puck. And Sean, I think one of the most important things on that play that sort of got pushed aside, Cole Perfetti wins a battle with Steven Stamkos along the wall. Yeah, sure, his stick broke. Who cares? Perfetti engaged physically, and that's why the puck stayed in, right? Toews gets the puck, but it's because Perfetti takes out Stamkos at a time where it looked like they were going to get the puck out with kind of relative ease, and instead, less than 10 seconds later, the Jets tie it up and find a way to get a point. So again, we've talked a lot about, sacrifice and guys doing the little things and all those details and things like that. Well, that's another great example. Doesn't show up anywhere on the score sheet, but every coach sees that play. Every player on the bench says, hey, did you see what Cole did on that play? It had nothing to do with offense. It was a smart play. It was a physical play. He got involved. He got engaged physically, with the veteran player, won the battle, and it allowed them to keep the play alive. And that's how that's how they've been able to kind of scratch and claw. And I get it. The Tankathon folks are up in arms. How could this be happening? There's still 30 points on the table here. So there's a lot of time for this to go one way or the other. So anyways, the team is battling more than they did when they were, fighting it earlier on. But again, this was never a team that wasn't giving effort. They weren't scoring, and they weren't getting bailed out by special teams or, goalies standing on their head routinely or whatever else. So they didn't play well enough. Now they're trying to right that wrong. They probably didn't leave themselves enough runway, but they're creating better habits. And there was a time this year when puck management was a poor thing, and they didn't do a good job on that front for a stretch of time, and it cost them, and it put them in a big hole that they're trying to dig out of.
You were talking about the team not scoring. The one thing we can say is all year long, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, that top line have scored, just like you could score all the time. You just need to go to Cambrian Credit Union, where you can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union when getting a mortgage. Doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.nb.ca/rates for more. And Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
Right on. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Real Page Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Now, Ken, at the beginning of the year, I talked coming out of the year that the Winnipeg Jets would not be the comeback team that they were last year. And they haven't been for the majority of the year, but they have been as of late. Now, I know the answer of why that is. I'm going to detail it, but I want your take on it first. Why are the Winnipeg Jets suddenly a team that is finding a way to fight their way back into game after game after game with the clock winding down? They do it over and over again. Why?
Well, certainly, I think you sort of I got one of your tells during your question to Mr. Taves. So I mean, they're certainly winning more offensive zone draws, and not just winning them, but winning them cleanly. And again, this is against Ryan O'Reilly, one of the best face-off men in the NHL for a long period of time here. So that ability is one thing. I just talked about the retrievals. You know, I'm using the Cole Perfetti example, knocking Stamkos off the puck and allowing Taves to get that puck moving around at the top to Josh Morrissey and everything else. So they're getting more sustained zone time in their 6-on-5s. And Sean, I mean, I think we had to say you were still in Italy, but we were watching the Jets work on 6-on-5 while the Olympic break was happening. And it's something they didn't work on at the start of the year. Or not a lot of anyway. There wasn't a ton of time to work on it in practice, but it's one of the areas they really locked in on during the Olympic break. And I think they're moving the puck quicker. I think they're getting more bodies to the net. And I think there just has been a general, higher sense of urgency on the puck and, getting traffic. I mean, the Jets nearly tied it the shift before when Elias Solomonson got that shot from the point on net, Sean. Yeah. It just jumped over Mark Scheifele's stick, essentially. Otherwise, he's got a backdoor tap, 25 seconds earlier. So just seeing the Jets move the puck a little bit better, getting to the net more. When you have a 6-on-5, you have an odd man situation. So you're able to sort of create 2-on-1s over the ice, and their ability to start with the puck has been a key contributor to that, I think.
Your final comment there is absolutely 100% what's correct about what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets. Now, to go over why I thought the Winnipeg Jets would not be the comeback team that they were last year, and if we're honest, if we take a look at the entirety of the year, it's not even close. They're not even close to what they were last year, but lately they are. Lately, they're almost exactly what they were, and there's this great scene in the movie Moneyball. And there's this talk about losing these three players, and they're saying you can't replace those players. You can't replace Nick Ehlers, but you can recreate them in the aggregate. And what you're trying to get an outcome. How do you get to that outcome? And the obvious outcome is scoring. But the outcome that leads to the scoring time and time again that the Winnipeg Jets are so good at is being in the offensive zone with the puck and with the opposition in a defensive posture. Stuck to the middle of the ice, and the Winnipeg Jets moving the puck around the perimeter, quick, all around until they try and get an opportunity, right? They used to do that. They used to have a cheat code to set up like that. The cheat code was Nikolai Ehlers. So they'd get the puck. It didn't matter how many times you flip the puck down. The Jets would go down. They'd get the puck to Nikolai Ehlers, or people would cheat towards Nikolai Ehlers. His speed backed teams off, and it allowed the Jets to get into the zone and to set up on the outside of the ice with the defending team in the interior in a defensive position, not an aggressive attacking position, a defensive position. Okay. What happened with the Winnipeg Jets for the majority of this year, and you'll remember it, if they would try to get the puck into the zone, they'd either get turned over at the blue line, thrown down the other end, let's try it again, and even if they did get it in, they'd get it along the boards, but it would be contested. The opposition would pin them against the board. There would be a battle for the puck. Everyone's battling for the puck, and it's close to the blue line. It's not a battle down in the corner. It's close to the blue line where you're at a disadvantage if you're trying to hold it in, and if it gets back over the blue line, they got to start it all over again and try to get in. You waste so much time getting in like that. Now you're at the stage where if you want to get in, you have to dump it in. Dumping it in creates a battle for the puck down low. That if the other team is battling for the puck, they're in an offensive, like they're in attack mode. It's what the Jets don't want. They want their opposition in defense mode. So they've recreated it in the aggregate. And it's very important because I'll tell you this right now. The Winnipeg Jets, if Jonathan Toews loses that draw, they lose that game. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Nashville Predators were great tonight at stacking the blue line and not allowing the Winnipeg Jets to enter with possession. So if they get that puck and flip it down the ice, now the Winnipeg Jets go all the way down to the other end of the ice and they keep trying to get in. And if they get in, they need to get in and get them in that defensive position. And the Nashville Predators were really good at avoiding that tonight. But what have we seen happen? What happened tonight? What has been the prelude to a whole bunch of these Winnipeg Jets comebacks? It's a face-off draw. So you'll notice the Winnipeg Jets have stopped trying to create scenarios where they're skating in. They get it to the goaltender and they say, freeze it. We want you to freeze it. UC Soros, freeze that puck, because what we're looking for is a face-off in your zone. Why? Because Jonathan Toews, we know, more likely than not, is going to win that draw, and he's going to win it cleanly. That's what happened tonight. Now, if people want to see what I'm talking about catching a team in a defensive position, go back and look at that play. Jonathan Toews wins it straight back, and when you win a draw straight back, there's no beating the puck to the defenseman. You cannot get there in time. So what do you have to do? You don't go running and skating out after it. You get into the middle, and you get into your defensive position, which is why the Jets win that draw, and then all of a sudden it's just them working it around. Hey, the Jets never lost the ability to do that. They never were unable to work the puck around the boards to create all those scoring chances like they do over and over again. They always had that. They were just never getting in the position to do so. Jonathan Toews has given them the opportunity to do so over and over and over again because he wins a draw and wins it clean, which immediate, just like when Nikolai Ehlers used to skate it in with his speed and back him off, it immediately gives the Winnipeg Jets full, complete, calm possession of the puck and puts the opposition team into a defensive posture in the middle of the ice. Give credit where it's due. The Winnipeg Jets finally figured out at some point that the best way to recreate what they did last year without the speed of Nikolai Ehlers was to create battles for the puck off the face-off, that they've got maybe the best guy in the league at winning. You are seeing the Jets get their way back into games, and it is entirely predicated on Jonathan Toews and Jonathan Toews winning draws, and that's why you're getting comebacks. Go back and look at it in this game. Go back and look at it against Chicago. You can go back and see a late example of it with Mark Scheifele scoring against the Vancouver Canucks. There's like 6 examples since the All-Star break. 6 examples since the All-Star break of Jonathan Toews winning a draw and the Winnipeg Jets scoring, because they know how to play that. You have to be able to get to that. Jonathan Toews gets them to that, Ken.
Yeah, and it's not just at the end of games, as Scott O'Neill pointed out when you brought it up, right? I mean, you have that goal at the end of the second period where he wins the draw cleanly to Mark Scheifele along the wall.
Yeah.
Just reference there, right? So anyways, it's hey, we know that Jonathan hasn't made the offensive impact that a lot of people, including you and I, thought he would. But there's value to what he's doing, and he knows where to be. And I would imagine there's the leadership aspect is Jonathan Toews, like we talked about, was probably going to play his best in the last quarter of the season. Now, if that results in a playoff spot, we'll see, or not, we'll see. But there's a calmness there when it comes to those situations, the draw situations, and again, you were attempting to, give the guy a chance to like not pat him, not Barry Horowitz himself, but at least like kind of acknowledge, some of the dirty work he's been doing. And he basically was like, well, it's my job. He wanted no credit for it. He was deferring to everybody else. He made a soliloquy about Mark Scheifele and his ability to find people and take care of everything else. All I had to do was shoot the puck, basically. So anyways, it's an interesting time for sure. And, the Jets deserve some credit, Sean, but to your point, I mean, the 6-on-5, I just double checked here. Jets have allowed 12 empty net goals at 6-on-5, and they have scored 4 times this season in that scenario. So, again, 4 comebacks in that scenario, but I know they had 2 in the Manitoba Miracle alone, right? So, I mean, to your point, it hasn't been as frequent, but it's been more frequent lately because of what we've been talking about. Jets got the pristine roofing wake-up call on that front.
Well, I'll tell you what they're getting the pristine roofing wake-up call for. Like you said, I gave Jonathan Toews an opportunity to pat himself on the back about it. What was I just doing? I was patting myself on the back for saying that they weren't the comeback team. Renny pats himself on the back and takes credit all the time. They need to start being more like Renny. What I want to do is I want to throw this to Jonathan Toews and him be like, let's be honest, guys. This team's comeback ability is nothing without this guy right here. So if you want to see some goals late in games, this guy better be taking the draw. Now that's what I'm looking for. Maybe they'll get the pristine roofing wake-up call and do that. Somehow I doubt it, but it would be beneficial for them if they did. Regardless, it's time for you to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs, questions. Pristine Roofing, you can call them directly as well at 204-237-7663. Give your home the pristine roofing and siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Okay, Ken, just the Saros versus Helly battle tonight. What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, the Sean Reynolds Award was won by UC Saros. I mean, I think that there wasn't I don't think there's a debate to be had here. I do have 2 quick things, and again, it's neither a knock nor a defense. It's just, I think one thing that I noticed, and again, I don't know how prevalent it was inside the build. This is one of the few examples where the ability to watch on TV, I think, was beneficial for me to get a little bit more context on how 2 of the goals were scored. And again, it got nothing to do with the plays in question, because Jonathan Marchessault makes a great play to create the lane and the spacing that allows the sharp angle one-timer by Philip Forsberg. Incredible shot. Sean, it's a rolling puck. I think that's why Hellebuck had trouble finding it. And also with Matthew Wood's shot, I think the puck also rolled on edge before he shot it over Hellebuck's shoulder. So again, neither a defense nor a critique of the player, just something subtle that I think, we talked a lot the last game that Hellebuck started about his ability to read plays. A little bit tougher to read where a one-timer is going to go when it's a rolling puck that gets hammered right on point, I guess, if you will. So anyways, I wondered what it looked like in the building to you. I mean, obviously sharp angler, but it seemed like a perfect shot bar down. The Wood one is a little bit interesting. It was kind of a broken play. To me, Sean, from here, it looked like he wasn't expecting him to shoot when he did. I wondered what it looked like in the building.
Yeah, to me,
did he just whiff on it? Did he just whiff on it?
Well, it goes off his shoulder, right? It goes off his shoulder and under. It's sometimes you just got to give credit where it's due. This is one of those ones, if you're saying, the style of the goaltender is big and boring, he wasn't big enough and boring enough on that play. This is one of those ones back in the old days where you'd say the goalie went down on his knees too early on that one. In tight, it's usually one of the ones that he kind of knocks away. The second goal of the game is I said it earlier on. Sometimes a team just pulls off a great play. That's a great play, right? Like sometimes you just got to give credit where it's due, and that's the credit where it's due on that one. And then the first one is just back to what has been Connor Hellebuck's kryptonite on this year. Screen shots and tip shots. The Jets haven't allowed a lot of those outside of that game against the New York Rangers. It rears its ugly head on this night. That's what Connor Hellebuck has struggled with all season. That's what the Jets have struggled with all season. They've done a good job of cleaning that up, but it gets to them in that game, in that moment there. This is just one of those ones where Saros comes out and, we call them Hellebuck wins, even if Eric Comrie is getting them in some people's cases. But this is a Saros Saros win on this
That's
night.
low.
No doubt about
Low there,
that.
low.
I just spitting facts here, Ken. That's all I'm doing is spitting facts. We did have an interesting conversation, Ken. There was a point this morning in the warm-up skate where there was a 2-on-1, and it was Gus Nyquist, and he went and he had a posture where he was coming in on the 2-on-1 like he was going to pass the puck over, and he just never ever made a move. He never made a move, and at one point Connor Hellebuck pushed off the post for the pass that was never made at all and just gave a wide open net to Nyquist. And it got me thinking something, Ken. I've got a theory. This is tinfoil hat time. It's been years since we've done this on this show. Get the tinfoil hats out. Okay. Do you remember the series against the Colorado Avalanche? The Winnipeg Jets go in. They get, goals like crazy. And I remember, and it was something I took exception with. I still take exception with it to this day. But at the end of that series, Connor Hellebuck had said, I thought I was playing absolutely amazing. And what did you want me to do? How do you want me to stop those goals? I said on this show, and I still contend, listen, your job as a goaltender is to give your team the best possible chance. It's not to stand there and say, you know what, no one's beating me because I'm big and boring. Oh, you passed it over? Well, that's your fault. You should have covered the back end of the net. Sometimes you got to bail your team out, okay? Like he did with the save that he made last year on, was it Sundqvist with the paddle? That ends up being a huge moment.
Was that 2-0?
Yeah,
it was 2-0.
Yeah, it's the Jets are in a ton of trouble if that doesn't happen. Anyway, I digress, but I think what we've seen from Connor Hellebuck over last year, so the difference between that series where they lost to the Colorado Avalanche, where it was like pass across goal, and a lot of tipped in shots in the front, if we remember that correctly. Last year, there was a lot of just straight up shots, right? They were going glove side. Word is out there, supposed to be Connor Hellebuck's glove side. But I think Connor Hellebuck, and I think it's there in his language, Ken. Connor Hellebuck, I do think after that year that he said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I did everything I possibly could, and in my mind, downloaded all the responsibility onto the players around him. I think he started being more of a goaltender that calculates the odds of the pass and then tries to jump ahead of the pass. We've talked about that. It's actually been a really good year for him this year, Ken. Is bad, even though his numbers aren't there. Last year was a great year, but it's something he hasn't lost this year, is Connor Hellebuck jumping across and making routine saves on passes across that should be one-timers into a wide open net. We saw it the other night. So he talked about it the last time he played, Ken, and he said something which I think is a tell on this. He talked about the player who passed it across and he went across and made the save. And Connor Hellebuck said he criticized the passer, saying he thought he should have shot.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hey, so what does that tell me? It tells me that Connor Hellebuck has what Connor Hellebuck would not do in that series against the Avalanche is he wouldn't be that goalie who cheated off the post and got caught cheating and it went in, because then you look like you screwed up. You didn't cover enough of the net. Oh, you're big and boring? Well, then why are you leaving the short side open? I think he felt that way about it. And then I think over the last couple of years, and last year especially, and I think it's continued this year, he started being like, you know what? I can't be that guy who just stands there and says, you cover off the back end, because if it goes in, it's on you. He's tried to take on more and successfully done so. And what it's done is it's made him, well, he's always been a really cerebral goaltender, but he's used that cerebral nature to try and get in the heads and basically running live, calculate the odds of a pass. And if it's going to be a pass, he moves across the crease and makes these saves like he made the other night against the Colorado Avalanche. And he makes them look routine because he's really good at guessing on it. But Ken, I'm certain that was a tell when he talked about Nichushkin. He's like, Nichushkin should have shot there because I was already showing that I was moving across the crease to stop the pass. And then today, Ken, if you would have seen it, you can ask some of the people who were there. Connor Hellebuck.
It happened at a recent morning skate too. I know exactly. Okay. I saw it recently also.
He jumps across to stop
He
the
literally
pass. It
goes
never
across
goes.
for the 2-on-1, and the empty net is there for the guy to shoot
It's just
into. It
right
was
there.
very odd.
They could literally skate it right in there. So it may seem odd, and what it is if you're going to have computer glitches, you want to have computer. I was talking about him being the Terminator the other day. You want to have computer Renny on a tilt. There we go. You want to have computer glitches in practice, but I'm telling you what those are. Those are a peek into a goaltender that's evolved, and one of the ways that he's evolved, it's made him a better goaltender at jumping across and stopping what a lot of teams are trying to set up as far as goals. But what it does is it makes him more susceptible to the shot than he has been in years past. And I think we saw that most definitely in the Blues series last year. Let's be honest with ourselves. We saw it in the Dallas Stars series as well.
I would say the one thing that did stand out about the Blues series is that he did a better job of battling through screens. And again, this is not a knock on the goalie, but I think his ability to kind of get around guy. And again, this, we all know the games in St. Louis did not go well for Hellebuck, but I thought he did a better job. I think he went into the offseason saying, I got to be better on deflections. And he was.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Anyways, I think we did a pretty good job of bringing out the tinfoil hats and kind of covering that one all the way around, just like the folks at Myers Drugs have you covered all the way around the city of Winnipeg, because they deliver anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. So if you have any pharmaceutical needs, if you have any health food needs or any supplemental needs, you know who to call, because they'll come to you. Give a call to the folks at Myers Drugs. All right, Ken, time for our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, you know what? There was a nice opportunity for Ozzy Weisblatt to toe drag to the middle. It looked like he was going to walk in and be in all alone and get a backhand, but Dylan Sandberg did an excellent job of getting his stick down onto the ice to prevent the toe drag, essentially. So that's what I'm going to use as the Got You Covered play of the game.
There is a play where you talked about him and how he played on this night, but Ryan O'Reilly, I think it's a Mark Scheifele shot that he's heading in. Now, I know
stick lifter.
The fine folks at the Johnston Group, they're Jets fans. And they may think it's sacrilegious for us to hand out the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game to a member of the opposition. But Ryan O'Reilly, that to me was the very definition of having his goaltender covered in a really tough position. So Ken gave his out. I'm going to give mine out. Two different plays for the Johnston Group Got You Covered plays of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca where you will learn more. And Ken, that brings us to our hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Oh, there's a bunch of really good ones. I think Saros had a couple late saves, but I think I'm going to go with the Hellebuck windmill in overtime because it looked like Forsberg might be going bar down on that one as well. So I'm going to go with the Forsberg shot in OT there.
Okay, you know what? I agree with it. And one of the brilliant things about that save that's made by Connor Hellebuck, if you notice this, there's a collapse of the players going towards the crease. They're there for the rebound. Now you will notice it's a windmill, but there's a forward action to it that is not a fluke in there. Connor Hellebuck, if you go and you watch the rebound, he gets his glove in front of it. And once he knows his glove is in front of it, he actually pushes it. So what happens is it comes out of his glove, but it comes up in a large, high arc that is going forward and away from danger. Then he steps up. I think it's the same play where he steps up and he moves it with his stick. So not only does he get involved in clearing the rebound that he creates, you want to talk about a goalie who's aware of what's happening out there. He's like, I just created a rebound, and the closest person to that rebound is me. So I'm going to step out of my crease, even though there's all this action, and I'm going to deal with the rebound. But it's the actual act, Ken, of the movement of the glove where he's, yes, I'm not going to be able to get away with not giving a rebound here, but I'm going to put the rebound in a spot where these players who are crashing the net aren't going to be able to get to it. I thought that was a very, very brilliant play. and very worthy of the hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last, and that brings us to our winner from our last game, and that would be Dallas Pauls, who I don't think is here. I know a lot of you talk with each other outside of this, so if you hear or you see Dallas Pauls, or if you're talking to him, or you're in a Discord chat room or whatever it is with him, let him know that he is the winner of the hashtag keg save of the game, and that he has to direct message Renny at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we get moving here?
Yeah, and honestly, Sean, I think if that wasn't near the end of a shift for those guys, like Hellebuyck's ability to kind of get it moving forward, I think he was trying to kind of poke it forward to try to create an odd man rush. I just think they kind of ran out of steam at the end of a shift there for Connor and Scheifele.
Yes. Well, the puck does end up going to the defenseman, who I think wants to step into and get a shot off.
Oh, sorry.
In that situation.
There was another play in overtime where he tried to poke it forward.
Yeah. He gave himself time. I thought that it was a smart play. Anyways, that's it for us here, ladies and gentlemen. We're out of here. But before we do go, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the fine folks at the Johnson Group, of course, they have the Kenny and Renny OGs, and of course, the fine folks at the keg. And I'm not just saying that because Renny Jr. Sr. is working there. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to you, folks. Let's get together and do this again as the Winnipeg Jets start up on the road trip. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.